And we are live. And all of a sudden now my camera's behaving weirdly. Someone tell me if my camera is good.
Your
But
camera went boom.
I don't know. It's like it's jerky all of a sudden. It wasn't doing that until I hit the streaming button. But we'll see. Let me check right quick and make sure it's up everywhere. In the meantime, someone in the chat post something and let me know you're alive.
Yeah, I'm checking it out, but I gotta wait till the ads are over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out right quick on Odyssey and Rumble.
I mean, it appears to be working.
Odyssey looks practically frozen on my... I might just go off camera. Well, let's see, what does Rumble look like? Oh, Rumble looks even worse. Yeah, I'm going to turn the camera off.
Okay. Yeah, one of those days. It just does not like your camera.
It's been working fine.
Hmm.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, your live stream's like, it's like, I like your voice, I like your personality, I like your co-host, but that camera, it just ain't agreeing with me. Yeah.
Name last name first says, communism is the only libertarian ideology. Change my mind. It's weird though, because I'm not seeing a lot of CPU or dropped frames, but we'll just do it without the camera. I've heard people unironically say that though. Yeah, the only way to be libertarian is communism. It's like, what are you talking about, you idiot?
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of some of the people on SO's server, because I'm on his server, and there's a lot of good people there, but there's some weirdos there, and there's some people out there that are like, oh no, we're not capitalists. Well, then what are you guys? Well, we're gonna do agorism, where we're gonna do gray market for, trading and goods and exchanges of services. It's like, that's capitalism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about agorism, the idea is you're doing it absent any government. You don't, like, if you've got cows and you're selling milk, you just sell the milk. You don't try to get a USDA permit or anything like that. You just do it.
Yeah. And like, some of them act like it's a revolutionary idea. It's like, no, it happens all the time,
Yeah, well, I think they call it the gray market.
Yeah.
Where
that's
you're not like dealing in drugs or anything like that. It's milk, but it's milk that's not inspected and pasteurized and everything.
Well,
you're selling milk exactly how people have been drinking milk for thousands and thousands of years, but all of a sudden it's bad for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, it's like gray markets are already around. They happen all the time. The only reason why nothing happens is because people need to remember the state is lazy and cheap at the same time. They're not going to go after you unless they have a reason to do so.
But a lot of times they'll find reasons.
Yeah. Honestly, something tells me that those raids on those quote unquote raw milk, places that sell that, something tells me that deep down, I think the cops really didn't want to be there, but there was some government bureaucrat saying, no, you guys are sitting around. You got to do something. Find something to do.
People need to realize that the dairy lobby in this country is a really, really, really big lobby. It's a big cartel.
Yeah.
That they just put a lot of stuff in.
Yeah.
Is there only one person in the chat so far, or did it freeze up already?
Hang on, I'll refresh. Yeah, it looks like there's just one person. Where is everyone?
I don't know. I scheduled it and, it should have sent out all the alerts as usual. But yeah, they did like to like an Amish guy. He was selling raw milk like they've been doing since they, came over here in the 1700s, and
Yeah.
now they're arresting him. It's crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of arresting, you kind of understood what I meant when I posted on your recent quickie video, right? About how, because if I recall correctly, it's been confirmed in court cases that that you can only be arrested for resisting or obstruction only if there's like an actual warrant out there. Like there's a warrant for your arrest or there's a warrant for you to turn over certain stuff. They
Yeah,
can't just.
but it's happened several times where someone's just like pissed off a cop or something, and they say, "Oh, I'm arresting you. What for? For resisting arrest." It's like, but what were you?
Well, I know.
arresting?
Well, I know. Well, I know. That's the. My point is that they're not supposed to do it, but unfortunately they do it anyway.
And a lot of times get away with it.
Yeah. But it's still useful to know, so because you can bring that up.
Well, and this differs among the states, and this is not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, but like in South Carolina, the law specifically says that you can forcefully resist an illegal arrest.
I know.
I think that needs to be a standard thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know if it happened in North Carolina, but wasn't there that incident, where a guy shot and killed a police officer that was sneaking into his lawn to enforce a warrant, and they tried to charge him for murder, but the court ruled because the officer didn't address himself and he wasn't following proper procedure, the citizen had every right to suspect it was actually a burglar that was breaking in.
Yeah, I don't remember where that was.
Yeah.
But yeah, cops are not allowed to trespass, and yet they do it all the time.
Yeah.
They can't go on your property without a warrant or reasonable suspicion to believe that a crime is ongoing.
Well, unfortunately, they exploit loopholes in the reasonable suspicion. Yeah.
I smell marijuana. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I saw a joke like that one time where it's like, well, I smelt marijuana. Officer, you do realize marijuana is legal in this state? Oh yeah, but if there's marijuana, there's gotta be crack there too. And that's still illegal.
Yeah, and it's just like all the times where police say, I smell marijuana, and there was no marijuana, or the drug dog signaled for drugs and there's no drugs. How many times does that have to happen before the court starts saying, wait a minute, this clearly, this is not the way things should be done.
Yeah, and I saw your quickie on the Reed video, and I'm like, why do they still allow that,
Because we got to get tough on crime, and no matter how many cops there are, and no matter what they paid, no matter how many powers they have, it'll never be enough. We got to be tough on crime.
Yeah, if it were up to me, if I were a judge, granted, I wouldn't last long as a judge because my rivals would kick me out, but my personal opinion is that if at any point during the interrogation or process the rights were violated, charges are dropped automatically, no questions asked.
I had another recent thought. We've talked about prosecutorial misconduct before. If there's prosecutorial misconduct, the prosecutor should face the same penalty you would if you'd been convicted.
Yep. Yeah, one person even made it. It's one thing that I've never, I still never get a straight answer from, and this is something I really want to ask. Why the fuck do we even have a prosecutor? Literally every single thing the prosecutor is supposed to represent is already represented. It's like, well, the prosecutor represents the people. No, that's the jury that represents the people.
Supposedly, the prosecutor is there as a check on police. They're supposed to make sure that, the police just can't grab someone and run them in and drag them in front of a court. You got to go through a prosecutor who's supposed to make sure that everything was done properly and the evidence was collected properly and the defendant's rights were, respected and everything. That's what they're supposed to do.
Mm. Which honestly, many people, when I come to think of it, that could just be handled by the sheriff because, I mean, sheriffs aren't perfect; they're still law enforcement, but they have demonstrated to be a little bit more reliable and more and more willing to follow procedure. Because, as we pointed out, they have a much greater incentive to follow the rules. Because, unlike prosecutors, sheriffs can get held accountable for their actions, unless you're
Well, in
Sheriff Aparo.
a lot of places, sheriffs are elected.
Yep. Yeah, unless you're Sheriff Apio, then you can do whatever.
Yeah.
Then you can. Yeah.
Oh god, that guy got away with so much.
Oh yeah.
That's something else I bring up whenever someone tries to say, "Well, look at how great Trump is. He's like a libertarian." It just Google Joe Arpaio.
Yeah.
Sheriff Joe
I mean,
Arpaio in 10 cities, and
yeah, I mean, he did stuff that even a lot of tough on crime people, when they took one look at it, they're like, dude, that's going a little too far. Yeah.
he was basically
Honestly,
turning his prisons into military camps.
yep. Well, I mean, yeah, if I recall correctly, every time a prisoner or even some of the guards, because if I recall correctly, some of the guards weren't treated very well either. When they complained, he would be like, "Well, we got troops in Iraq that are sweating and dying of thirst, and they don't complain."
Yeah, there's just something really wrong with someone like that.
Yeah.
But with the proliferation of, because we saw what a mixed bag body cams were, because cops can choose to turn them off.
Oh yeah.
Which I think
And
I think they should be just running all the time, as long as they're on duty. They shouldn't have that option. And also they're a bear to try and get, because if you try to make a request for it, you got to go through all the bureaucracy, and of course they're going to oppose it tooth and nail. But we've got phones, we've got dash cams. More and more cars are having, Tesla's got cameras all around them. And, people are installing, forward and backward facing cameras and everything. And they're catching a lot of stuff. So, I mean, if citizens can record police and do things to record police, there's going to be hopefully a lot more accountability. Because when it's right up there on video, how are you going to deny that?
Narcissists always find a way. No, someone came on. Yeah, the chat is not working.
The chat is not working?
Well, I'm not seeing anything.
I just refreshed and the one chat went away. I see yours. Okay, it came back. Is there anybody out there? Do we have viewers? Is it going? Hello, Sid.
Hi.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Oh yeah, now I remember what I was gonna say earlier about the read thing. It's one terrible thing too, because so many people say, it's like that's why the only words you should say to a police interrogator are I want a lawyer. But my own lawyer told me this. Unfortunately, one downside of doing that is that by reinforcing your rights as a citizen, the police are going to be, oh, this guy wants a lawyer. Oh, he's clearly guilty. If he was innocent, he never would have asked for a lawyer.
Yeah, they do that. And
Yeah.
they'll say, like, if you ask for a lawyer or assert your rights or whatever, they'll say, well, that's going to be a bad look for you. That's not going to look good. That's how you know you're dealing with a bad cop. That's one of the ways you can tell.
Yep. Yeah, that's the kind of cop that would get yelled at by the judge overseeing the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Which sadly we don't see a whole lot of.
That judge is normally very deferential to prosecutors. That's what was so surprising about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what I think that's the reason why he was getting a lot of applause, because unfortunately a lot of judges do unfortunately have, tend to be buddies with a lot of prosecutors, so a prosecutor will go completely out of line during a trial and the judge will be like, yeah, I'll allow it. It's valid. But no, he was like, you can't be doing that. You know better than that. Though to be fair, I think we talked about this during the live stream when we were covering Kyle Rittenhouse. There's an old saying that they say that that if they assign your case your case like to like a lesser DA, like not even like an assistant of the main DA, that's usually a sign that either A, that typically means they don't have a very strong case for you.
There is actually someone in the Rumble chat. Hello, Jay Stahl, a Rumbler, who just says L speech. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean, but welcome. It's not really fitting on the screen that well, but anyway.
Yeah, honestly, that's why if I ever became a judge, that's why I said I'd probably be kicked out soon, because I would be a constitutional judge, and the system would get rid of me. Yeah,
Sid,
it's like, okay,
we've got a lot of noise coming from your end.
Oh, yeah, it's probably some. Oh god. All right, I'll mute for a second. I think it's the air conditioning.
Yeah, I'd be the type of guy where it's like, okay, so officer, why do you think that this person actually committed the crime? Well, the thing is, he was very uncooperative. He wouldn't say anything, and every time we pressed him, he kept demanding to speak to a lawyer. So he's clearly innocent. That's not looking good for him. And I'd be like, so expressing his rights as a presumed innocent person is suspicious and a sign of guilt. And I laugh at that one statement that says, look for signs like they don't want to look directly in the eye or they're fidgety. It's like, well, then by that logic, everyone with social anxiety or autism is guilty of a crime.
Yep.
Because I struggle to look people in the eye. I fidget, especially if I'm being. What?
They do that at airports too. Like if someone's like not looking up at anyone and they're fidgety and stuff like that, or basically all of the symptoms of autism are reasons to suspect someone is a terrorist.
I mean, this is a little gross, but one funny story I read about, where that kind of logic backfired. Yeah, backfired was a case where was this one incident I read where where a businessman, he was acting, like he wasn't looking. He was looking all flushed and all that, and the security thinks, this guy's up to no good, interrogating him. The guy wasn't talking, and he was begging them to let him go. And they're like, nope, you're suspicious. We gotta search you. Well, it turns out the guy wasn't acting suspiciously because he was a bad person. It's because he ate something that disagreed with his stomach, and unfortunately, despite his pleas to go to the bathroom, they denied him, and he ended up soiling himself right there in the investigation room.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of pseudoscience like that. Like if they're sweating, then they're lying. If they look up and to the left, then they're lying, and it's all crap.
Yeah.
It's all crap.
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah, it's like
everything related to lie detectors.
Yeah, it's like this guy is sweating and brushing it and wiping his brow. Yeah, he clearly must be guilty. Yeah, the fact that it's 99 degrees with high humidity has nothing to do with that.
Or it could just mean they're doing CrossFit.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are just naturally sweaty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think Sid was mentioning your new username there, Scarface.
Yeah.
I know you had it, but...
Yeah, it's looking for a change of character. It's named after an Ace Combat character.
Oh, I thought it was named after the movie with Al Pacino.
Yeah, that was
it's an Ace Combat. It's an Ace Combat character. It's a mercenary pilot, and his call sign is Scarface 1.
All right.
And we have the rhythmic thumping that we always get from Sid for some reason. Did you ever figure out what that was?
I still haven't figured that out. I mean,
It's now it's going
the
bum
AC
bum
had stopped.
bum bum. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like someone's banging something with a hammer back there.
Except like it's very regular, like almost clockwork.
Yeah, well, there I am right next to a clock. Hold on, just give me 1 second.
I don't think it's a clock. Still no one in the chat, huh?
Nope. Either this is a really quiet day, or maybe something's up with the chat. I don't know.
I don't know.
Are you still hearing it?
Yeah, we're still here. There's just no one in the.
Are you still hearing the noise?
Someone chat posted something.
Hello, Mr. No. I'm looking over in the YouTube studio, and it like dropped to 0 there for a while, which is weird because I should have been 1, and so I think there might have been something that that like cut out the chat there for a minute. I mean, not the chat, the live stream. We may not have been broadcasting this whole time.
Oh, that could explain it. Hey Sid, what's the temperature over there? Is it hot AF over where you live too?
Well, no, it's the Northeast, so not really. Right now it's 63 degrees, but that's because, well, it's like 8:24 p.m. my time. Or, well, it's Eastern Standard Time, obviously, but yeah. But even during the day, it was only in the 70s.
And we got about...
Yeah, that's what passes for June weather in Massachusetts.
And we got about half as many viewers over on Rumble, so hello to everyone over there. Rumble seems to be better for live streams, and Odyssey seems to be better for uploaded videos. It's just interesting how that's working out.
So, big news is some billionaire went missing underwater.
And some leftists are actually cheering.
Is that related to that that underground tourism thing that was checking out the Titanic and they went missing?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of details on that.
Yeah.
I know some people were cheering because screw the rich.
Yeah. I mean that is that's a pillar of leftist thought. If you're rich, you're evil automatically.
Like everyone on there is rich, including like the people who operate it, and
yeah.
That's like what they were saying. It's like, oh, we gotta tax the life out of these yachts because rich people buy yacht. Well, yeah, and working people build yachts.
Yep.
So if you make it harder for them to get, what happens to their jobs?
Yep. They took our gerbs.
Oh yeah. The exact same people complain that the rich are shipping our jobs away to Mexico or China, or I mean, it's also the right. The populist right
it's government that does it by regulating and taxing them to death.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you made a video about that a while back, like years ago. It's a pretty good video.
The reason they do that is because it's too expensive to operate in America in a lot of places. I know a lot of places are leaving San Francisco now.
Yeah. A lot of companies are leaving California.
To be fair, though, I bring this up, and I really wish a lot of people would bring this up. Is that the reason why San Francisco was collapsing is, contrary to popular belief, it's not because they're defunding the police. It's because they're defunding the police, yeah, but they're still enforcing, gun control and, oh, you can't interfere. Like, no joke, that's happened. Like, there's been cases where people have literally been setting up security companies and there's even like some, amateur militias out there, and the government saying, "Oh no, those people aren't allowed. We will arrest them if they arrest, homeless people trespassing or the likes." That's the reason those places are failing, because if you get rid of the police but you still let people keep in bare arms and defend themselves, you're not going to see a whole lot of crime increase. In fact, it might even decrease in a lot of areas, but
Hamish Harding is the millionaire you were talking about. Tickets on that submersible were $250,000. But if you think about it, it's pretty amazing, because it wasn't until recently that you could even, go down there.
Oh yeah, I mean the reason
was it like the 80s when it was finally found, or 90s?
I don't remember.
Because like if you watch all of the films before then about the Titanic, basically all the pre-James Cameron films, they have the Titanic, going up on end and then going straight down without breaking in half. Because they were going with the, surviving crew member, and what the company officially said, White Star Lines, what they officially said is that, well, the hull was sound, and all the surviving passengers were saying, no, it broke in half. But they were going with the official story. So you finally get down there to where you can see the wreckage, and guess what? Here's one half of it, half a mile away. Here's the other half.
Yeah, it was discovered in 85.
Yeah. But basically listen to the people without a financial incentive either way.
Well, to be fair, one of the reasons why you can't visit a lot of those shipwreck sites is because, if I recall correctly, they're legally registered as grave sites, and if you go there without authorized permission, oh, you're defiling a grave.
Those bodies are long gone.
Oh yeah.
Hate to break it to you, but they were fish food a long time ago. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, they might be like, I don't know, fossilized or something.
No, they wouldn't be. Fossilization takes thousands of years, and it's not going to happen at a place where there are hungry animals.
Yeah. I know the crew. I know the bodies of the crew of the Edmund Fitzgerald were surprisingly still intact when the ship was rediscovered, but that's because it sunk in a part of Lake Superior that's abnormally cold, so not a lot of places live there.
Yeah, it's not. First of all, it's not as bioactive, and second, wasn't it only like 5 or 10 years after it happened when they?
I don't.
Whereas with Titanic, it was like 70 or 60.
Yeah.
That's a lot longer.
Yeah.
Even without even just with natural the natural decay of the human body, you'd only expect a skeleton to be left after then, and like I said, with fish around everywhere, even that's gone.
Yeah.
Their grave is the entire Atlantic. That's their grave.
Yep.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, I totally understand wanting to respect the dead, but some people take it way too far, Like, a perfectly good example is...
There's just a part of me that always just thinks it's really, really weird that we go to great lengths to save our dead people.
Yeah.
We gotta save dead bodies. There's just a part of me that's like, am I the only one who thinks that's just a little bit weird?
Like, I cannot tell you how many military people I triggered and pissed off super time when I told them that the tomb of the unknown soldier is unnecessary, and the tomb sentinels are wasting their time and resources with these strict standards they're expected to have. Like, they get docked points if their pin is like a fraction of an inch off that nobody except a busybody army officer would notice.
And of course, they take it a step even. Also, if you're the former leader of a communist country, they take it a step forward and go through extreme lengths to preserve you. Like, if you've seen like Lenin's mausoleum and Mao Zedong and Ho Chi Minh's, etc.
INVU, I don't know what city you might be talking about there. I hadn't heard of that. There was
I don't
one
think that was
city
a-
in like Mexico where that happened, I think.
But yeah, I mean, it's pretty funny because like the comics are the comments were all full, in response to my to what I said, we're all for the cliche stuff. It's like those men fought and died for your freedom. It's like, well, okay, first off, that's not the point. We always have that. And second of all, here's the thing. One, they're unknown soldiers. They couldn't be identified, at least. I mean, now theoretically we can identify them through DNA, but at the time of their discovery, they couldn't be identified. So for all we know, there could be some German soldiers amongst them. And last time I checked, American soldiers were not going into war fighting for the Kaiser.
The Edmund Fitzgerald sank November 10, 1975. The wreck was located on November 14th, 1975, so it was 4 days later.
No. I mean, I think the reason why there's so much misconceptions about the Edmund Fitzgerald is because of Gordon Lightfoot's song, and Gordon himself has said, "Listen, my song isn't accurate; it's a tale of it."
Well, we have no idea what was actually happening on the deck as it happened because there were no recordings or anything of what happened. So he just had to make all of that up.
Yeah. Well, for instance, one thing that we know is a factual error is that according to a song, the last transmission of the Edmund Fitzgerald was oh my God, we're in danger, the main hatchway cave in. But in actuality, the last transmission was actually pretty calm. It was basically the captain saying, "Yeah, it's rough, but we're holding our own." After they discovered the wreckage, if I recall correctly, they've now realized that the Edmund Fitzgerald would have survived the storm, but unfortunately, it got rotten luck and it struck a sandbar, which weakened the hull, which caused it to break in two.
I'm looking through the Wikipedia article now. It doesn't say, but it definitely says it broke in two.
Yeah, it broke in two. Yeah, it struck like a sandbar or something in the storm, and that combined with the storm caused it to snap in two. And yeah, the Edmund Fitzgerald
they actually discovered the remains of at least one crew member in a life jacket, so they were aware that it was sinking at the time, with enough time to prepare.
Yeah. And I mean, the sad reality is, the sad reality of it is that even with all that preparation, their chances of surviving were pretty slim because not only was there a raging storm going on, but according to a lot of people that sail on the Great Lakes, they get really really cold during the autumn months. So
they've got a lot of hypotheses for why it sank. The shoaling hypothesis is just one of them.
Yeah.
Like one other blames something in the cargo or a structural failure. Or
I think the reason why the Edmund Fitzgerald is so fascinating is because I've actually seen interviews with people that that do work on those cargo vessels on the Great Lakes, and they say a lot of inexperienced sailors that come to work for us, they have this misconception. It's like, oh, this is a lake, it's not the sea, so I'm much safer. It's like, nope. Lakes can be just as dangerous as the sea. In fact, they have their own dangers of the sea.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, if I recall correctly, lakes, they tend to be a lot more colder than ocean water. So, like I said, even if you survive the sink and get in your life vest, if you're not rescued in time, you'll quickly succumb to hypothermia before the rescue arrives.
Yeah. Even if that city did lose its police force, it would still be the case that you'd have like the state police and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if I recall correctly, contrary to what some cartoons say, like if the police officers go on strike, or whatever, they're incapacitated, the city doesn't dissolve into chaos and anarchy. Generally, one of two things happen: either A, people will start their own little, community watch groups, and they'll deter crime. Or like you said, the governor will say, "Hey, this town or village doesn't have police officer. Can the state police or sheriff's county take over?"
Chat, how is the live stream going through? Because on OBS, I'm seeing that it's only using 30% CPU, which is typical, and less than 2,500 kilobits per second, but YouTube is complaining about it overloading. So I don't know what's going on there. Well, let me know if everything's coming through, okay?
Not seeing much activity on Rumble, but but the chat is starting to come back on YouTube, so. Companies are leaving California. Why am I not surprised? It's like,
Yeah.
listen, yes, California has is beautiful, and it's got a lot of historical sites, but the fact of the matter is, one, the taxes are ludicrously high, and two, people don't want to go to places where there's a homeless guy taking a crap and shooting up outside.
Well, and it's also like one of the least business-friendly states.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, no joke. I mean, I've watched Tim Pool. I mean, there's been cases
Also,
where
the housing costs are like in another galaxy.
Yeah.
like, there's literally, cases of, criminals literally breaking in and stealing stealing whatever they can, and like literally some of the county governments are just going, "Oh, it's just a minor petty theft," Like,
well,
I'm not gonna...
as when you see a lot of those people hawking like the fight for 15 and stuff like that, they're coming from places like California where housing costs are through the roof, food costs are through the roof, and they kind of assume that that's everyone in the country. Where if you're like looking at people in rural Mississippi, it's not going to be like that. But if you try to impose a minimum wage, then in places like that, no one will be able to afford to operate.
It's happening in even like I was actually in LA last summer. Like the area, around Universal Studios is like tent city after tent city. Like it looks, it's an absolute mess.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if it's true or not, but I've actually heard that country people believe, a lot of those homeless people, they're not homeless because they're mentally ill or down on their luck. It's like some of them actually do have money and all that. It's just that they can't find affordable housing.
Yeah. And 40% of those costs, according to a lot of estimates, are because of regulatory burden.
Yep. I mean, it's just like they seem to be hell-bent on making every mistake possible,
Well, and also going back, to the whole they're tolerating, thievery and all that. Like, what's one really big pet peeve I really have though, are the people that say if you catch someone stealing like, just a few dollars worth of stuff, just let them go. If you try to stop them, you're going to create a conflict. It's going to escalate and all that. It's like, people, that's not how it works,
Yeah.
Because you know what happens if you let him go and you don't start a conflict? He's going to do it again. And other people are going to say, they're going to be like, hey, he got away with stealing, I'll steal. And then it builds up from there, Yeah, and the absolutely stupidest thing ever I've seen people used to justify, it's like, well, stores have insurance. Yeah, and who pays for that insurance?
Well, and insurance doesn't cover arson.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't cover arson. It doesn't cover, it doesn't cover that. And not to mention, like I said, if like they're shoplifting and you do like little to nothing to like at least make an attempt to stop them, a lot of insurance companies will say, oh, you let it happen, happened. You made no attempt to stop them, so we're not going to cover it. You know, I mean, if the guy was heavily armed or you were clearly in a position, you know.
Well, and that's why you had, like, in the riots and everything, you had business owners, trying to, with fire extinguishers and everything, trying to protect their business because they knew insurance wouldn't cover it.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. Which is ironically one of the excuses a lot of people defending those riots gave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rioting is the language of the unheard. Don't worry, insurance will pay for it, even though that's not how
Oh,
it
yeah.
works. And a lot of those businesses did not return.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even if they're rioting for a good reason, it doesn't change the fact that it does damage to communities. Like,
Well,
like
and
even after the LA riots in '92, like the city lost like $4 billion in taxable sales, which is why a lot of specifically Korean business owners, it's understandable why they took up firearms to protect their businesses.
Yep.
I actually remember seeing this one interview one time where they interviewed a long time, where there was like they interviewed this long time civil rights activist that lived in Los Angeles, and they asked him what his reaction to the LA riots were, and his reaction was he was looking at his TV and saying, "You mother freaking idiots," because and they asked him, well, why did you say that? It's like, because we had a chance to make legit progress. Because let's be real here, the LAPD, it was corrupt and abusive as fuck, and it was getting away with all this messed up stuff. And this could have been a perfect opportunity, to launch a movement. But then some hooligans decided to riot, and what happened? The LAPD said, "Oh, see, look what happens when you try to hold us accountable and all that. All that criminals get set free, and the whole village burns." And a lot of legit reforms that were in the works were thrown out. That's what happens when you riot people. You don't tell the police we're fed up with your bullcrap. The police are going to say, "Oh, see, this is what happens when you defund the police."
Yep.
Like, seriously,
they'll say,
like,
"Oh, see, this is why we need tough on crime policies. Or this is why tough on crime is necessary," and stuff like that.
Like, yeah,
we
literally.
were talking about that before we went live. All the tough on crime stuff.
Yeah.
Do you even think about scaling back the police a little bit? No, we got to get tough on crime.
Yeah.
No matter how much they pay the police, no matter how many police they have, no matter how heavily militarized they are, we still need to get tough on crime.
Yeah. And it's so funny. The irony is that I've seen like some anti-police groups and all that, like they acknowledge, that there's issues with the U.S. criminal justice system. But it's funny. Guess who they place the blame on? They don't blame it on the police. They don't blame it on the tough on crime. They don't blame it on the war on drugs. What do they blame it on? It's the private prison system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, did the private prison system pass all the bogus drug laws and send cops around to, raid the wrong house and shoot the dog? No.
Yeah. And here's another thing too. I've looked it up, and apparently, contrary to what some of those people are saying, private prisons don't really exist. There are prisons that are quote unquote private, but all the company does is provide the guards and the maintenance. All the rules, standards, and all that. That's set by the state or the county.
Actually, they're all heavily supervised federally.
Yeah.
Much more so than regular state prisons are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it, SKM. I mean, we know it's the case with the Second Amendment. Something bad happens, and then they call for gun control laws that wouldn't have stopped it, so that when it happens again, they can have, let's get more gun control laws.
Yep. In all honesty, this whole thing is just only proving our point that we say. I think, honestly, a lot of these, groups like BLM and all that, they'll deny it, but deep down, they don't want to defund the police. All they want is, no, we don't want, the regular police. We want, the Black Liberation Patrols. Basically, people we like should be doing the law enforcement, not a neutral third party or or citizens militia. It's got to be like a political. It's like got to be a group that supports the party. I think I saw this one political comment one time, and it was like all the way back from the 60s or whatnot, and it was making fun of the Black Panther Party, and it shows a guy saying, "Why did you form the Black Panther Party?" "Oh, because cops are beating up our civilians and they're being cruel to blacks. So we got to show them. That we're frustrated and we've had enough." And the guy says, "Okay, and how is staging riots and shooting people going to tell the cops to back off?" Like, if I recall correctly, the guy who wrote the comic, he was, all for a lot of the principles. He was just pointing out, it's like, people, that's not going to deter the cops. That's only going to strengthen them. Remember, governments, they live on a persecution complex. We literally see it. They love being persecuted,
Well, they don't love being persecuted. They love making out like they're persecuted. You've always gotten the biggest cries of persecution from, the most politically powerful groups.
Yeah,
I mean, and it was the same way back in like the 70s and 80s when you had the moral majority and all the Christians basically passing, one theocratic law after another, going on about how, Christians are oh so oppressed in this country. Give me a break.
And the irony is that they were sort of behind the idea that AIDS was tied to homosexuality, and a lot of gays were actually persecuted because of that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if I recall correctly, the funny irony is that when AIDS first came about, it wasn't blamed on gays; it was blamed on drugs. Then the 1980s rolled around, and that's when the religious minority entered a resurgence, and then it went from AIDS is a disease only those filthy drug users go to AIDS is a gay disease.
They were using it as a reason why. You see, this is why God hates homosexuals, because homosexuals get AIDS more than straight people do, and it's more transmissible among gays than among straight people. And my response to that was, well, then God must love lesbians, because they were by far the lowest risk group for AIDS.
Yeah. Yep, and then a bunch of non-homosexual 12-year-olds died of AIDS, and then people realized, anyone can get AIDS. And it's not necessarily an ST.
And you also had like priests that got it from blood transfusions and things like that.
Yeah. Then they realized, wait, it's not necessarily an STI. You can get it through other means. Oh. No, Schism, as a bisexual guy personally, and here's the thing, I've talked to legitimate people who are LGBT, and they personally think a lot of those people who are in those radical groups, they're not necessarily trans or all that. They're basically belief in believers.
But I mean, the thing is, for the longest time, the LGBT movement was all about, we're not drag queens. We're not, people who go, having sex in the streets. We're ordinary couples. Some of us have been together for decades. We're, monogamous. Yeah. We're loyal. We're just like you. And now,
I mean,
they're being the exact same caricature the religious right said they were back in the day.
Oh yeah, just like third wave feminism. The whole point of of the initial feminism wasn't socialism or anything. It was just trying to say, it's like, listen, women are capable of doing a lot of stuff if men would just stay out of the way. Now it's all about women are a special breed of humans that need protections and immunities, and more rights than other groups do.
Yeah, they went from we can stand on our own to government needs to take care of us.
Yeah.
Same with other minorities.
It's also kind of fun. It's also kind of funny because, like, I was talking, like, to some people that knew guys, that did drag shows and all that, and they find it funny about the language because, like, they're like, for instance, for a lot of transsexuals, they're like, well, you can't say words like tranny or she-male anymore because that's offensive, and it's like, and like, one person I met said, like, I've known people that were in drag, and they used to wear the term she-male like a badge of honor, they loved being called that,
Yeah.
And it's the dumbest excuse ever because I brought this up to a person like who claims to be non-binary and they're active in that group. It's like, well, because it was turned into a word against hatred. It's like, so? Okay, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen when the term non-binary becomes a slur and an insult? And his only response is, well, then we'll change a different word. It's like, you're not fixing anything then.
Okay, it's like there was on Twitter someone had said, and Elon Musk had responded to them, but it was something like, I specifically said that I don't like being called cis, CIS, and I asked people not to call me that, and then I started getting harassed all the time, hundreds of people calling me that, when they knew I didn't want to, and Elon Musk replied, well, that's hate speech, just report it. And the community notes thing went crazy. A lot of us tried, voting it down with no note needed, so I don't think the notes went through, but I'm one of the community notes guys, just in case you didn't know. But, it was all like saying, no, it's just Latin. It was taken from the Latin. And other people were pointing out, no, it was taken from Latin, but it was made specifically as a derogatory term. And my point was, the N word is also from Latin. It's the Latin word for the color black.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, when you see those community notes, some of them went through it because there are a lot of groups on there trying to abuse those.
Yeah. That's why, this goes with gun control, but it goes with a lot of other things. Here's a little rule you need to learn, people. If you're going to do a cultural comparison, actually learn about the culture you want to compare it to.
Yeah.
Because, like, I saw this one time, because they were talking about, how Christmas is racist, and all about that. And, people say that's why Kwanzaa was invented. There is literally no tribe or country in Africa that practices Kwanzaa.
Yeah, it's a made-up American holiday.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if you go...
all holidays are made up.
Well, yeah, but it was made up in America, not in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not based on anything traditional. It was invented by a civil rights activist because Christmas is too white. Blacks need to have their own unique, holiday. Ignoring the fact that the whole point of the civil rights movement was we don't want to be different. We just want to be people. That's another thing too with a lot of
like equals. Yeah.
That's another thing too with a lot of these SJW groups. It's like they want the group they're trying to represent. It's like they're acting like it's like, oh, we're a special, unique type of human being, and that's why we need to have special rights and privileges. When previous, groups like in the gay, black, and all that community, the whole point was we're not these subhumans, we're not these filthy Mexicans, we're literally just humans with a different skin color, but that's it,
Yeah.
By the way, there's been some people, like, because I bring up Martin Luther King a lot, they're like, oh yeah, but Martin Luther King also wanted reparations and all that. It's like, I literally can't find anywhere where he said that.
And then you have the people who
where he said what?
He was a socialist.
He said there's people claiming that Martin Luther King was in favor of reparations for slavery and all that.
And many socialists claim he was a socialist.
He was kind of in his later years, those last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean,
not like full blown Marxist, but he was going from saying the divide isn't really blacks being oppressed by whites; it's poor being oppressed by the rich.
Yeah,
which is still not right. It's everyone else being oppressed by the political class.
Yep.
And hopefully more and more people are waking up to that, given what's been going on.
that's not 100% true, Schism. I mean, Halloween as it is, it's been celebrated like this for a couple decades, but yeah, like the whole thing of going around the neighborhood, that is a semi-new thing.
No, I mean it's an ancient Irish holiday. That's where we got it
Yeah.
from. The trick
Yeah,
or
it's
treating and
basically
everything else. Yeah.
yeah,
we
it's
don't
basically
really have the superstitions of it. It's really just an excuse to cosplay.
yeah. I mean, to my knowledge, Halloween is basically a merger of Christian holidays with Irish with the Irish, ritual Samhain, basically. If I recall correctly, trick or treating it actually was developed by the Christians because it was during Samhain, a lot of Christians would try to avoid the pagan holidays, and they would go to each other's places, and the whole thing of trick or treating was basically, it was a code word for them of, like, they didn't say trick or treat, but it was their code way of saying, hey, are you a Christian or are you a pagan? And if you were a Christian, you were invited in for food and all that, and basically they would wait the holiday out, basically. Saturnalia,
But they would dress up as the pagans the way they were dressing up for their ceremony, so they'd kind of fit in.
Yeah, it was a way to disguise themselves. It was their way to disguise themselves from pagans or evil spirits, basically. So it does have a Christian holiday. I saw this one funny meme say it's like, why do Jehovah's Witnesses hate Halloween so much? And it says, oh, because we don't like it when random people come up and knock on our door without permission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've spoken to some ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and I've seen documentaries. That organization is messed up, and not a lot of people realize it.
Which organization?
Well, actually, a lot more people.
Jehovah's
Oh,
Witness.
Yeah. They're
Actually,
really,
a lot of people do realize it thanks to a lot of.
Oh yeah, well yeah. Thanks to the internet now, their infamous reputation and their cult-like behavior is starting to get exposed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Leia Romani did a special on it when she was doing her, thing on Scientology and how similar they were. I will give Scientology some credit, though. Scientology is kind of sort of honest with their beliefs, Like, they kind of make it clear right from the get-go that they say, listen, the only way you're going to advance into the church is you have to devote so much time and money to it, whereas a lot of other religions, they trick you into giving you that. Like, they don't tell you up front. They just say, you don't have to do it, but we're gonna passive aggressively guilt you if you don't do it.
yeah. Because I mean, at least with Catholicism, they say, okay, we're asking you to tithe, 10% of your income or whatever it is. Other churches, like a lot of Protestant churches, don't do that, but they pass the communion plate around publicly as opposed to having like a donation box in the back or something like that.
Yep.
So everyone can see, you whether or not you put in money.
Yep.
Any organization that would do that doesn't deserve money, frankly.
Yep.
And the worst is the ones when they're finished and the preacher takes the collection plate. He goes up to the cross and holds them up in front of the cross and presents it to the cross. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
How pretentious can you get?
Yeah. I thought churches didn't need money. What? Why would you say that? Well, doesn't it say that the Lord will provide them with all that they need? So why would they need to ask for money? God would just give them money. Or heck, why even just give them money? Just give it to them. If they need more wood to build another church, why can't God just magically produce the wood?
No. See, you're the one who doesn't need money, and that's why you need to give it to the church. Again, parallels to the state. You're the one who doesn't need the money. We need to take it from you in taxes to spend it on something better because you won't spend it right.
Like, I still ask people, how to justify taxes, because it's like, they talk about goods and services and all that are provided by the government. But what about people that don't use the goods and services, like schools? Why should why should a childless couple or a couple that's not, taking their kid to a public school, they're either homeschooling them or sending them to private school, why do they have to pay for a good or service they don't use?
Yeah, but I mean, if you like, and I swear, I thought this was satire when I saw it, and some Free State Project friends of mine assured me that it wasn't. New Hampshire Democrats were like passing around this literature on these extremist free state people and how they were robbing money from our precious public schools because they don't want kids to have an education when they're talking about like the voucher system.
Yeah, it's the voucher system, yeah.
And it was just so insane and over the top. It's like, do these people not understand how they look?
Yeah, and
when they do that.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, they're stealing children because they don't want children to go to school. It's like, yeah, because implementing a program that'll give people better choices of where to go to school. Yeah, that's totally robbing them of education. Yeah, versus
and I mean, a lot of them still even say like, oh, well, we need to do it the way the more Europe does. Europe does the great, and look at how great the results in Europe are. Yeah, most European countries have school choice.
Going back to what I said earlier, that's why don't do a cultural comparison unless you actually know what's going on. Like, here's another fun thing I like to do, and this kind of goes back to gun control. So many people say, why can't we have stricter gun laws like Europe does? It's like, well, guess what? Contrary to popular belief, well, yes, they are stricter than America. A lot of European nations have strong gun cultures too, and there are nations. Like Norway, for instance, while they do have stricter gun laws than the United States, they still let people buy semi-automatic weapons. You can't use them in self-defense or anything, but you can use them for hunting and all that as long as you meet the legal requirements.
I mean, there are states and cities in the U.S. that have more stringent gun control than a lot of European countries.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
Yeah, speaking of gun control, I saw yet another person claiming we've had like 318 mass shootings and 8,000 deaths in this year so far.
Yeah.
What's their criteria for mass shooting? Always ask them that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. They're saying it doesn't include suicides, but
It's also pretty funny when they use a case where someone attempted to do a mass shooting, but they were stopped by an armed person, and they count that as a mass shooting.
Unless they're looking at, whether or not armed citizens can stop mass shootings, in which case it doesn't count.
Yeah.
That was what Mother Jones did all those years ago. Look, none of these mass shootings were stopped, by armed citizens when using the criteria of 4 or more people killed. Yeah, because they were stopped before they got to that point.
Yeah. Or what's another funny thing too is I love it when they try to fact check and they say it's like, no, this mass shooting wasn't stopped by an armed civilian, it was stopped by an off-duty police officer. Yeah, an off-duty officer, meaning he's not wearing his equipment, he doesn't have his standard issue weapon, and he's not in police duty. He doesn't have all the tools except his own personal firearm.
Or, he wasn't a private citizen, he was a veteran of the armed forces. They don't get the... They're just looking for excuses to discount it. That's all it is. And even if you found someone who wasn't like a vet or, a off-duty police officer or something, they'll go through, they'll do anomaly hunting. They'll find some other reason why that doesn't count.
Yeah, and... Yeah, going back to the whole veteran thing, yeah, they, like the whole thing with it was an off-duty cop, not a civilian. It's like, contrary to what 1970s and 80s cop action movies portray you, police do not typically take their weapons home with them. I mean, they're
not allowed to usually.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally a stamp on almost all guns used by police departments that says property of the city PD.
Well, and that's what people were saying. Like after the Fort Hood shooting. Well, see, that was a military base and they didn't stop them. It's like, well, yeah, because the military police, still has that problem of like the response time. They can't be there in a matter of seconds. You're like, but it's a military base. And it was like, it took me a while for them to realize that they didn't understand that thanks to Bill Clinton, soldiers do not have firearms on military bases.
Oh yeah,
They're not
exactly.
allowed to have it until they're issued. They have to be stored away, and the ammunition has to be stored away separately.
And the only person that has access to them is the quartermaster. So if the quartermaster isn't available or he's killed or whatever, those soldiers are screwed.
Well, even so, it would take time because they gotta get permission. They're in two different locations, and you gotta it's gonna have to be stopped by the MPs.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
those are the only people armed on a military base.
Well, and yeah, that's another thing too. That's the reason why why, like you said, and I've actually seen police officers who are pro Second Amendment say this. It's like listen, even if let's say a mass shooting occurs and we respond, everything is perfectly, and we get there like within like 5 minutes. We're all set up. It still takes a while for us to set up. SWAT doesn't just go in guns a-blazing. They have to set up a perimeter. They need to assess the situation. And not to mention, like you said, they need permission. They need to contact, the politicians or the chief of police saying, okay, we got the perimeter set up. We got snipers set up. How should we proceed forward?
Yeah, 3 people were killed. That means it hadn't yet become a mass shooting. And the first one was his mother. That wasn't even at school. He murdered her in her sleep before he went over there, and he killed 2 people. And then the vice principal, got his gun from his car and stopped him because his gun was out in the car. He had to go get him. Might have been a different story if he'd had it on him. But the point is, even so, having a firearm that he could get, he was able to stop him.
And it's one little detail about Sandy Hook that a lot of gun control people seem to ignore or try to cover up. Adam Lazan did not buy his weapon from Walmart. He stole it. He killed his mother and stole it from her. Of course, they try to say it's like, oh, well, if guns were illegal, she never would have had the guns for him to steal. It's like, people, you're missing the point. Like, if he was willing to kill his own mother to get his weapon of choice, it clearly shows he was determined to do it. So if a gun wasn't readily available, he would have just gone to a black market dealer and gotten one.
Or all sorts of other places.
Yeah.
I mean, look at all these third world countries where, they have basically gangs everywhere because the police are corrupt, and
yeah.
Look at how easily they get guns.
Oh yeah, that's another fun thing too.
There aren't legal channels to get guns in those countries, but they get them.
Oh yeah, that's another thing I love too. Is when they say it's like America is the only developed nation that has such levels of mass shootings because we have such lax gun laws. It's like, why the developed nations? Because here's the thing: a lot of third world nations that have all these mass shootings and gang violence, they actually have, surprisingly, they have rules in the books that are heavily restrictive, if not outright ban guns. And I think I know why people don't want to use them, or they try to blow it away. It's because it only proves the point. A law is not this magical incantation that's going to make the evil thing go away.
Yep, they can't even keep heroin out of their own prisons.
Recently had Brazil until recently had pretty strict gun laws, but they're not exactly a safe haven.
Yeah,
if you know a thing about them.
Well,
it's really in Latin America that has such high violence and yet also such strict gun laws. That's
and to be
there's
fair,
always going to be guns. It's just a question of who has them.
Yeah,
Well, there's also the cases where a shooter could outsource buying guns to someone who is able to legally buy them. That's what happened.
Anarcho-liberal. It's the funniest argument I ever hear for that, people. It's like, well then by that logic, we should legalize theft and murder because what's the point? People are just gonna steal and kill from each other anyway, so why bother? That's the reason why that whole story arc in some cartoon superhero stories about how someone takes over and makes crime legal. It's like, let's be real here, people. Even if murder and stealing was legally allowed, would you let someone murder or steal from you?
I mean, if that's allowed, then it would then defending yourself would have to be allowed, and
Yeah,
having the means for it. So
yeah, I mean, it would paradoxically destroy itself. That's the reason why that's the reason why the purge wouldn't work.
oh yeah, we've talked about that several times.
Yeah, it's like you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, but you can't do this and that. It's like, but crime's legal. Yeah, but you can't do this and that. So it's a crime. Yeah. So then it's legal. No, no, no. You can't target or do something that hurts the new founding fathers. You can hurt anyone else you want, just not the new founding fathers. But it would be allowed then. No, it wouldn't.
But you know what exactly what they would do if something like that happened? One day a year you can do whatever you want. Everyone would be setting up stands and selling things.
Yeah,
and I can actually prove that because that's basically what the Frost fairs were back in London during the Little Ice Age, and it kind of ended out in like the early 1800s, I think. The Thames would freeze over for like several weeks on end, and technically there were no laws on the Thames because it was a waterway. So people would go there and, I'm not saying it was any kind of idyllic utopia or anything, but they wouldn't go there to create all sorts of, horrendous crimes. They would go there to, set up stalls and sell things and engage in commerce.
Yeah, that's another thing I hate about the movie The Person. It just shows just how stupid the writer is. It's like, there's one day when all crime is legal, and people are like, what's something the first person would do if they were in a situation like that? I know, they're gonna murder someone. Like, I think we brought this up before, but it's like, I always want to ask those moralists, they say, how can you be good without laws or God or whatever? It's like, okay, let me ask you this. What is stopping you from killing me? Is it because you're a human being who empathizes with me and understands killing me is wrong, or is the only reason you're not killing me is because of a law or some divine being? And if your answer is the latter, then you stay the hell away from me.
That's why I'm worried about the people who don't get the meaning of the phrase "an armed society is a polite society." Like,
yeah,
who was that? Was it Mr. Beat? One of those I debunked was saying, well, I don't want people to be polite just because they're scared of being shot. It's like, oh my God, what is wrong with you?
Yeah,
The person who is armed becomes more polite.
Yeah. That's why I find it laughable. Like, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about Christmas. Like there's actually some childcare experts that are against the idea of Christmas and Santa Claus because it's like, oh, children should be good because they should just be good for good's sake, not because they're going to get rewarded. It's like, that's how life is. If you're a good person and, you're productive, you help out and you do all this good stuff, most of the time you're going to be rewarded. Same thing with those child experts that say, oh, you shouldn't be paying kids to be doing chores. They need to learn they have to do it. It's like, why?
Yep. They didn't ask to be in that situation. They're not there by their own consent.
Yeah, and and that's a very important life lesson to teach them, Like, I'm not gonna lie, I hate teachers that would always say, oh, if you think school's hard, no, wait till you get a job. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of bull crap that goes on with working, but here's the thing. You get paid to do a job, and also, and I point this out, as we said, you don't have to work there. If you are fed up with, working for the man, you can work at a job that won't treat you like a cog, or you can start your own business. But you are legally required by law to go to school. If you refuse to go to school, they send the cops after you.
Yep, and you don't get paid for it either.
Yep. You don't get paid for it. All you get is a piece of paper with letters on it that would be put to better use if you wiped your butt with it. Yeah, as you can tell, people, I am not the biggest fan of the educational system. Well,
yeah, I don't think any of us are.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing too. It's like it's like, oh, you're against education. You want people to be stupid. It's like, no,
How does the current educational system make people not stupid?
Yeah.
They usually come out stupider than they came into it.
I mean, yeah, they've known this, since the 1930s. I mean, fun fact, that was the whole point of that speech that that the wizard gave to the Scarecrow, about how there's people that go to universities, they spend all this time there, and they come out with no more brains than you have, but they have one thing that you don't have, and that's a diploma.
Yep. So he gave him a
Yeah.
piece of paper.
Yep. Like really, the only sincere gift that he ever gave that the wizard actually gave was the Tin Man, because that's actually like legitimate advice. It's like, listen, you don't need to have a heart to be a caring person. You're already like that, Whereas with the Lion and the Scarecrow, he basically had to give them a trinket that tricked them into thinking that they had what they had,
Yeah, that Bastiat. I forget what essay that was, but it's like, yeah, the socialists try to mangle up society and government so that they'll say that if we don't want something to be done by government, then we don't want it to be done at all. And they're still doing that to this day. They haven't changed.
Oh yeah, the classic, well, who's gonna build the roads, or who's gonna provide, or who's gonna take care of, the poor and all that. It's like, and they treat the answer of "I don't know" as an see, you don't know, meaning you don't know anything, And I know Tim Dyson brought this up in a really old video of his, but another classic one is, well, what if we implement an anarcho-capitalist society and it fails miserably, and it's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that it doesn't work, and you were wrong. Okay, we were wrong. Anarcho-capitalism doesn't work, but that doesn't mean communism will work.
Just means we have to think of something else.
Yeah, the solution then isn't to say, oh, yep, anarcho-capitalism didn't work, we gotta go back to statism or communism. No, it means we gotta go back to the philosophical table and come out, okay, we need to figure out what system of economics and behavior does work.
There are alternate systems to anarcho-capitalism and communism.
Yeah. Who's gonna take care of you if you're poor? Yeah. That's another thing I want to ask a lot of those socialists. It's like they care about the poor and all. That's like, okay, like what are you doing for them? It's like, well, I'm out there marching and protesting. Yeah, but are you at a soup kitchen helping out? Are you volunteering at Habitat for Humanity to build a cheap, affordable home?
Oh, there was a great thing back when Family Guy was good.
Oh,
when
yeah.
Quagmire gives Brian a big talking down about that. Like, oh, you care so much about the poor? I'm down there, at the homeless shelter, doing out food every week. I don't see you there. You want to help? Grab a ladle.
Yeah. Yep, and also it's like, and yeah, it's pretty funny because like so many people say, oh, but Quagmire's a terrible human being. It's like, yeah, but he's honest about it, and he says that too. It's like, listen, I only date women for their chicks, and I treat them like sexual objects, but I'm honest about it, I don't pretend, I'm this intellectual, philosophical, and then try to leave them a copy of Catcher of the Rye and all that. Yeah, I've never read Catcher in the Rye, but according to people who have read it, they told me it's basically what Quagmire describes it. It's not, this thought-provoking thing. It's just a kid screaming and rambling about his life.
I don't know. I haven't read it either.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I heard, it's kind of like one of those high school books where the story behind the book is much better than the actual book itself. Like The Great Gatsby. Yeah, I remember when I was in high school and, we were talking about F. Scott Fitzgerald and all that. And to be fair, F. Scott Fitzgerald is a fascinating person to read about, and, he did have an interesting life. But then you read The Great Gatsby and you're bored to tears by it. Like, I'm sorry, like, going back to what we said about making things stupider, school destroyed, for a while, I destroyed all the reading. People love reading, but I ended up hating it. Because why? Because school is all about, it's like, school is all about, it's like, okay, now read chapters 1 through 2, and then write a 5-paragraph essay about the interactions of the characters and how it applies, to modern day corporate America. It's like, I just want to read the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, can I just read the book?
Yeah, but most books are not written to be sat down and analyzed like that. They're meant to just be read and enjoyed.
Yeah, looking back now, one really cringy one was when I was in elementary school, and it's like you had to read a book and then you had to write, like a long essay about that and all that. And I remember like when I was in like, I don't know, 1st or 2nd grade, I read this book, I read this book. It was like a children's story. It was about a family of monkeys that were just doing ordinary tasks around the house and all that. The teacher was upset with me that I just wrote that. I just wrote it's about a family of monkeys doing household chores. It's like, yeah, but what about the interactions and all that? And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? It's a children's book. It's about monkeys. He's doing house chores. What do you want from me?
I mean, most of it, when especially in like college, they talk about all the symbolism and this and that. Most of that symbolism was not intended at all by the writer.
Yeah.
It's just something that people with kind of an elitist mindset read into it so they can pretend to be smarter than people. But you talk to the writers like, no, that's not what I didn't have that in mind at all.
I mean, if I recall correctly,
I have to write a 3-page essay about the subtle socioeconomic meta-commentary present in The Very Hungry Caterpillar.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I mean, there's like not lessons to be taken away from some of these, but like if you spend all your time on a piece of media thinking about like what are the implications of or what did he write about the state of society? Did he code in there? Like,
if I recall correctly, that mentality is why Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was written. That's one book I did generally enjoy reading in school because even my own teacher said, here's advice I'm going to give to all you students about this, because this was something that a friend of hers said when they first introduced her to the book. The secret to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is don't take it seriously. The moment you start thinking about it and you start looking at the allegories and the metaphors, that's when you realize, wait a minute, this book's making fun of me for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that reminds me when
it's like when the guy, comes across, one of the creators who actually created Earth, and he explains how Earth was created and how it all worked, and he's like, wow, you know what? That makes sense. All my life I felt like there was this sensation like there was something bigger than me out there, and now it's finally making sense. And the guy's like, no, that's just paranoia. Everyone feels that.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, Marvin, do something! I've been talking to the ship's computer, and it hates me.
Or the Galactic Arts Noveling Council and their reaction to the poem Ode to a Small Lump of Green Putty I Found in My Armpit One Midsummer Morning.
Yeah. I think, because in a way, the thing I love about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is that it clearly is making fun of both sides. Like, it's making fun of, that one guy that clearly can't write for shit, but it's also kind of making fun of, like some of those snobby art critics where it's like, yeah, look, an ode to a lump of putty I found in my armpit, it's a bad poem, but it's not worth tearing your own arms off for. But unfortunately, there's a lot of critics that act like that,
But I mean, he was just talking about how, in general, poetry itself is just a bunch of nonsense that someone puts together and other people pretend to understand it because no one wants to point out that the emperor wears no clothes. That's pretty much the state of painting today. People just slash some, colored smudges on a canvas, and all of the go, oh, yes, I see. And you're like, what? I don't get it. I was like, well, you just don't understand. You're not cultured like we are. You just don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, Miss. That in the original book, that's what Marvin said. But I'm talking about the movie because in the movie, the line went from I've been talking to the ship's computer and it hates me. I love Alan Rickman. He was awesome as Marvin.
Yeah, I still prefer Stephen Moore though. The radio series, I think, is the better one because that was the original, and Douglas Adams wasn't trying to do any kind of like literary structure with it like he kind of felt he had to do with the books to try and tie it all together. It was just complete stream of consciousness, just one madcap thing to another, basically not even pretending to make any sense.
Oh yeah, a common criticism some people had for the movie was it's not a loyal adaptation, but if I recall correctly, Douglas Adams himself said if you try to adapt, my book into another media and you try to do it loyally to the book, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, and he had he had died before the screenplay could be complete, and Carrie Kirkpatrick passed it on. And people were complaining about all of the things Carrie Kirkpatrick did with the screenplay that wasn't like Douglas. He was like, but those parts were written by Douglas.
Yeah. I do love the ending of the film though, with the point of view gun. That's awesome.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and because it's played by Alan Rickman, I always jokingly say maybe that's what Snape should have done. He could have ended the Wizarding War by doing that. Cast a spell that makes everyone see his point of view, and they all become depressed and cynical. All the Death Eaters go from, yeah, death to Muggleborns to, what's the point? I'm inbred, I'm ugly, what's the point?
I think the movie actually had the best depiction of the Vogons, because despite his best efforts, people in the books and the TV series got the wrong idea about the Vogons. They weren't these, like, evil monsters out to destroy things. They were bureaucrats.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, they didn't just, I mean, like in the movie, they will establish it. They didn't destroy Earth because they were evil and they were looking at how many planets they were destroying. They were doing it because that was on the list of planets they had to destroy that day.
Yeah, that's what the paper said they had to.
Yep.
And of course, in the radio series, you find out that it's actually a conspiracy of psychiatrists because they don't want people to learn the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. Because then they'd be out of a job.
Yeah. But yeah, the Vogons, like I said, they didn't destroy Earth because they were evil or hated humans. Like I said, it's like literally it was on the paperwork. I mean, the Vogons are more or less, they're the type of people where if it's not on the paperwork, they're not going to do it. I don't know the full line, but if it's not on the paperwork, they won't even rescue their own family members. If a family's in danger,
the thing is, they won't even lift a finger to save their grandmother without all these orders that have been this and that and happened to it. But then, because it was like about saving your grandmother from the ravenous bug bladder beast of Traal, but the guide entry ends off with the best way to annoy a Vogon is to feed his grandmother to ravenous bug bladder beast of Traal, because no matter how much he would want to save her, he still feels he can't without going through all of that.
Yeah, I mean, if I recall correctly, that was even in the movie where one of the Vogons gets shot and is killed, and the leader goes, hey, you're not scheduled to die.
Oh, sorry, I had to drop off for a second to get something. What are we talking about now?
Hitchhiker's Guide, how the Vogons are basically bureaucrats.
Yeah, I've never seen any of them or read any of the books, so I'm unqualified to participate in this discussion.
Yeah, everyone thinks they're these like big evil race, and they're not. They're bureaucrats. Yeah. They destroy the Earth not because they're evil and want to destroy the Earth, but because someone filled out the paperwork for it.
Yeah. And same thing with the president, and same thing, like, I don't know if it was in the books, but in the film, the president signed the order not because he hated Earth, not because he was bright, not because he was corrupt. It's just because he was trying to make everyone like him. That when the Vogon said, "Hey, we have this paper to destroy a planet," he's like, "Sure thing, no problem, man. Let's all be happy together."
No. They asked for his autograph. That's how they picked him.
Oh.
And signed it without even looking at it because he thought he was just giving his autograph.
Oh. Actually, Schism, there in the book they did why wizards hide from muggles, and contrary to popular belief, it's not because they're afraid of being persecuted. It's basically because wizards are elitist pricks. I mean, Hagrid says, "Oh, if muggles knew about us, they'd want magic to solve all their problems." And that's why.
Would that be? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, like, why aren't they using it to solve everyone's problems? Why are they living the way they are when magic could make everyone's life so much better?
Oh yeah, if I recall correctly, in the expanded lore of Harry Potter, I mean, Harry Potter's great grandfather, I think like James's grandfather, he got into some serious trouble with the Ministry of Magic because World War I was going on and so many people were dying and it was causing all this violent bloodshed, and he saw it and he was sick of it, and he says, "Look, there must be something we can do to end this bloodshed, maybe even a way, to bring peace and all that. And the Ministry of Magic was like, nope, it's a Muggle war, it's none of our business. It doesn't affect us, so." I'm sorry, but some of the stuff they do to maintain that secrecy, it is in so many violation of so many human rights. It's like, oh, you witnessed magic, yep, we gotta modify your memory. Which, by the way, it's established in the books also that even with skilled memory charm users, it's a dangerous spell to use, which is why it's only used as a last resort.
Yep.
Yeah. Because, you might be trying just to erase, it's like, oh, they saw a dragon, okay, we'll just erase that little thing and modify it so they think they just saw an airplane or a weird cloud, but no, you accidentally erase the past 15 years of their life, and now they think they're in elementary school.
Yeah. Or they just get everything wrong and they go insane.
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling
yet-
sucks at world building. Yeah, I think that's the real answer there.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was her first novel. I mean, you
Yeah.
don't become an expert out the gate.
Yeah. Here's another perfectly good example. Like, there's this one funny thing about people, saying it's like cultural scenarios, ruined with math. And many people pointed out, oh, Harry's not that rich because according to J.K. Rowling, he wouldn't have enough. His gold galleons wouldn't be worth enough, for an apartment and all that. And it's like, well, there's a major issue with that argument, and the problem is that J.K. Rowling doesn't know how much gold costs. If the gold galleons are made out of legit gold, like a single gold coin, she said they're worth about like 30 pounds. In real life, if they're pure gold of that size, they'd be worth at least a couple thousand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Stream and audio is breaking up. Oh, that's not good. Is anyone else experiencing that? Testing. Please let me know. I've already stopped the webcam, and it usually solves the problems when we do that. I have no dropped frames or alerts on my side. I was getting alerts from the YouTube side a while back. Let me see if they say anything now. I am seeing viewers going up and down and up and down and up and down. Let's see, stream health. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. I didn't do a speed test before I started. We've had a lot of rain and bad storms here lately, and so the internet may be degraded because of that. My upload speed could be down.
Quick thing. I'm not sure what exactly prompted this, but apparently there's a lot of discussion on the troubles of Ireland on Twitter right now. I have no clue what prompted it. Yeah. Well, what are your guys' thoughts on it?
I thought the troubles ended in the 90s.
Yeah, I know, but people are discussing it on Twitter.
What, like with the IRA and everything?
Yeah.
What are they discussing?
Whether or not the IRA was a terrorist group.
Well, I mean, they pretty much were, but at least they gave everyone enough warning that they could clear out before they blew up entire city blocks.
Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, the IRA, it started out as a non-violent political organization, but then it got taken over radical socialist, and then it became militant.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, if they wanted to, they would have had an amazing death toll.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if I recall correctly, that's actually part of the reason why why there were so many splinter groups, was because there was still a lot of debate. Was because within the IRA, there were a lot of people saying it's like, listen, our beef is with the British government, not the British people. So let's try to spare as much casualties as possible. But there were some extremists out there who were saying, nope, anyone who's opposed to the IRA is an enemy, and therefore they must die. And that's why we got some of those car bombings, which ended up killing children, because they're unfortunately were like screw it, we're at war. Any means necessary.
Yeah, but mostly they were just out to destroy infrastructure.
Yeah.
To impoverish the British the way the British had impoverished them.
Yeah. Ironically, gun control, the IRA is proof of why the British gun control doesn't work, because Northern Ireland is a territory of Britain, and therefore it's subjugated to the UK's gun laws. Didn't stop the IRA.
What do you mean the root folder gets overflowed? There shouldn't be anything in the root folder except for those, topmost folders like, boot, home, Etsy, var, user. So there shouldn't be anything there, and I don't know what you mean by overflowed.
Why the awkward silence?
I don't know. No one has anything to say. Folder fills up with God only knows what and the OS crashes. That's weird. That should not be happening.
Maybe it's you. Still there, Sid?
Yep, I'm still here.
I know Darth Vader wanted to join, but he had like some issues popping up.
No, I haven't seen Hannity use some interview. Yeah, I basically gave up on my dual boot with Linux because Windows just kept just hosing the master boot record and putting it down. And basically every time I wanted to go into Linux, I had to boot from a thumb drive and reinstall Grub and then boot from it. And it was a pain in the butt. And then after I got done with that and I booted back into Windows, Windows said, oh, there's an error on the drive. We got to fix all this stuff. And it would do things like, trash my browser settings and stuff like that. If I can get to where I can have a multi-computer setup, I can just do one with Windows and one with Linux. And do you have to be a Patreon member to join the Discord? No, you do not. Patrons will get special access to various other Discord channels. But yeah, the Discord itself is open. Go to discord.bogosity.tv. Or the Lord Killian Discord. I don't have a good link for that. I did make a short link to it. But yeah, you can find all that. Usually in the footer of the videos on YouTube, or Odyssey or Rumble, just go to the bottom and links are there. Sid, you trying to say something?
Oh, no, I was just watching something, so I turned my mic off for a sec.
Yeah.
I think a little bit of it was leaking through.
I'm listening to music too while talking to you guys. You don't hear it, can you?
Nope.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, fascinating.
Depending on how you mean using, I've been using Linux since version 1.0 back in like 1991. Not seriously, that was more like pulling up and seeing what this is all about, but like basically like when it really started getting usable, like around I guess 95 or so. Yeah, people are still saying it's choppy. I think it's just not going to work this month. I think it's probably the internet, because with all the rain and the storms we've had, it might be that the upload speed just isn't up to scratch. I would try to stop and restart, but when I tried that a few months ago, oh man, it was a disaster and I couldn't get it restarted. Yeah, I don't know, Mr. No, there are plenty of places online where you can go and get help about Linux, and the wonderful community of people will help you out. You can ask on Twitter, you can ask on Reddit, all sorts of places.
I know a little conversation started. We can do since we still got a few more minutes left. I know a perfectly good reason why copyright laws are stupid and oppressive, and how contrary to what some people think, people who are pirating games are not stealing.
What's that?
Because some games out there, especially some of the rare games, they're way too expensive for most people to afford.
Well, yeah, that's the big reason for piracy, is because they can't afford the content to begin with, so it's either pirate it or do without it. They're not actually losing sales.
Yeah, because I was at a game store today just buying some stuff and browsing around, and they had this rare PS3 game that was released by FromSoft that made Dark Souls and all that, and it's a rare game. You know how much it was worth? $800.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, like, I'm sorry, like, don't get me wrong, I love games, but I don't care how rare a game is, I'm not spending that amount of money on a game. Especially if you can get it through somewhere else,
Well, and considering it's just information, why would information cost that much? Especially if it's an older game. Basically the devs have been paid off long ago.
Yeah. I know it's funny. I hate those those YouTube videos, for gamers where it's like these top 10 games that you didn't know exist that you should play. It's like, oh yeah, these do look like fun games. Okay, what are they like? What? They're $500 on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's like, put a disclaimer that's like, oh yeah, by the way, these games are rare, so they're gonna cost you money.
I mean, I could understand if it was like collector's item in the original packaging and everything.
Well, this game was a collector's, like, it was in the original packaging, so I'm pretty sure that's why it was $800. So yeah.
But I mean, just to like on Amazon to download and play it or something.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I'm still like, I mean, I understand some people buy them because they want the novelty of owning it, but that's another thing too why I don't understand, like, collectible toys and collectible games. It's like, I mean, it's cool and all that, and I mean, I understand it's your money, do what you want with it, but from my point of view, it's like, what's the point, I
mean, I would like to, be able to purchase something to keep it forever. I mean, if it's like a subscription service like Netflix where I just watch things and then I don't necessarily want to watch them again, that's fine, or a pay-per-view or something like that. But if I buy something that I really like, I want to keep, I'm going to actually want to keep it. And I want to be able to have it and have it play and have it keep playing all the time.
But, again, going back to collecting rare games off, they're still in the packaging, and they're like, then it's like the paradox. It's like, but if I want to play the game, I have to open it, and that'll decrease its value and all that. And I'm just like, well, then what? Then you shouldn't have bought it, because... Yeah. Now, that's a paradox of some of those, collector's items. It's like, yeah, it's mint in the box, but that, I mean, even Toy Story brought that up, surprisingly. It's like, yeah, you're a rare mint in the box collectible, and you're going to spend the rest of your existence literally just sitting on a shelf and not playing with anyone.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've heard of that. People have like tried to buy a Blu-ray disc or something, and because of all the DRM, they haven't been able to play it on their computer or whatever, and they just give up and download the pirated version, and they're like, hey, I paid for the content. I should be able to watch it, so I'm just going to download the pirated version and watch that.
I know something like that happened with Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six New Vegas. Vegas, Ubisoft, was so obsessed with protecting their copyright that they put a DRM on it that said unless you had a physical copy of the game, you can't play it. Which, worked at first, but then they decided, that was when Steam was becoming a thing. So it's like, well, let's make a copy that people can buy digitally. And many people were saying, hey, Ubisoft, we can't play our game because the DRM keeps saying we don't have a physical copy, so we can't play it. And they tried fixing it, and they couldn't undo their own copy. So what they ended up doing was they went to a pirate site and used a pirated copy and used that as an upload. Yeah.
Yeah, physical media, but let me have the copy on my computer to watch. Let me just rip it to my computer, and then I can put the disc away and don't have to worry about it getting scratched or whatever. And then if something happens, I can always put it down and rip it again. But just let me have the...
Kind of reminds me of when Angry Video Game Nerd did an episode with a friend of his, and they were reviewing Nintendo World Championship, which is an extremely rare NES game, and they decided, the joke was that it's like, well, how can we even play it? It's such a rare item, we can't play it. What are we gonna do? Then they realized, oh wait, I have this reproduction cartridge, which is essentially the same game, but it's not authentic, so it's only $50. So I'll buy it. So let's play it on that.
I've said this before, but it's like the Pirate Bay is going to be our modern Library of Alexandria, because when future historians are trying to get our data, trying to look at our movies and everything else that we watched, if they get it, the regular copies, they won't be able to watch it because the DRM systems will be long gone. They'll have to go to the Pirate Bay to see what kind of stuff we were watching.
Yeah, it's just...
Well, the ones that aren't available on whatever streaming service or whatever.
There won't be streaming services. I'm talking about like future historians dig for everyone's hard drives and everything. Yeah. All these ancient hard drives. Hey, what did this culture watch?
You know, it's one really dumb argument I've actually heard. Copyright, and granted, this isn't a thing in America. This is more of a thing in Japan. Because I was watching some videos about Japanese copyright laws, and some people that have worked in Japan have said one of the reasons why copyright is so ludicrous in Japan is because, like, no joke, a lot of companies they literally treat copyright like as if it's physical property, and if you pirate it or anything, they literally act like you're stealing from them, which is why they get so pissed off. Yeah, they take the whole PSA of you would steal a car literally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, those commercials were dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, and many people pointed out, it's like, listen, the reason why downloading a movie or music for free is not stealing, because unlike a car, the reason why stealing a car is wrong is because you're unlawfully taking it away from someone who previously had it. You're not doing that with a copy of a film or a music,
Well, someone, of course, they might argue that you're stealing from the company that makes a movie, but well, I mean, if they're not making it available...
The argument is that you're stealing from the artist, but the artist gets such a pittance from it anyway.
Oh, yeah, Yeah, contrary to what people think, contrary to popular belief, a lot of those musicians, they don't make as much money as you realize they do. Like, I mean, a perfectly good example is Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I remember those commercials on like the 2000s era DVDs that I watched in my youth that like have that of course that pretentious like track in the background that says you wouldn't steal a TV or whatever, so I steal
And then they decided it was a good idea to make them unskippable. And you have to watch like 15 minutes of old commercials, outdated movie trailers and something like that just to play your movie.
Yeah.
That is an advantage of streaming. For all of its faults and failings.
Honestly, when it comes, according to some people I've heard, on the inside of entertainment, the real reason why like I said, it goes back, the real reason why copyright is so obsessive with big media is that, believe it or not, it has nothing to do with money, because media companies are well aware, that piracy can actually increase sale. It's all about control, Like, for instance, when Metallica, sued Napstar, some band members who disagreed with them, the band suing them said, listen, the reason why the band originally sued wasn't because about money, it was because they were upset because it's like, Napstar released a song when we didn't want it to be released yet. And
people got leaked copies. Yeah, that's something the industry's been trying to crank down on.
Even though, like I said, from what I've heard, leaked copies doesn't really matter. It's like, why, Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like advanced copies they would send out to like radio stations and stuff like that, and then someone would grab a copy and put it online.
Yeah. I don't get it. Like, what's the point, It's like, what are you worried about? Spoilers? This isn't a suspense thriller. It's your newest album,
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
it's good promotion.
Yeah.
It's like when Doctor Who came back in 2006, and the first episode, an early edit of it, leaked online, and I kind of got the impression that the producers were being kind of a little overdramatic, like, oh, how could someone do this? This is so terrible. No, please don't give a lot of attention to us for this thing that we're going to do and tune in and see it. It's like they knew that it would be a boon for them, and some people actually speculated they did it on purpose for that reason.
I mean, I have heard, that, while it's not as common as people think it is, I have heard, like, there's been interviews with people inside that do that. Some companies do that. They create false outrage, for the whole point. Like, I know
attention for it, and then everyone goes, oh, what is this? And they download the pirate, and then they like it, and so they tune into the show.
If I recall correctly, I think the video game franchise Devil May Cry did that for one of their games, or no, wait, it wasn't Devil May Cry, it was a different game. But yeah, because because it had a lot of Christian themes and images of hell, they paid they created a fake Christian group. It wasn't a real Christian group, and it was and they paid them to basically to go on TV and say this game is satanic and it's corrupting our youth and it's doing all this stuff, and people were going, what is that? So that ended up
they just increased attention for it. Yeah.
Yeah. It did increase attention for it, but it also backfired to a lesser extent because some people found out, and it's like, dude, we don't like being played like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
the fake controversies, yeah.
Yeah, fake
manufactureversies.
Yeah. Yeah, you do have to be careful with those because,
if you're caught, people will retaliate.
Yeah,
They won't like
that's actually the reason why a lot of advertisement agencies do say, we try not to do that if we can because yes, controversy is great publicity, but like we just said, if you're caught, you're gonna fail big time because people don't like being deceived.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm gonna head out real quick. Got some.
Yeah, we only got a couple minutes left anyway, so thanks for joining, Sid.
No problem. See you guys next time.
But I mean, if you can kind of, inspire it to happen organically. Controversy. Of course, then you have things that are just being made for the sake of the controversy that end up not being very good and quickly forgotten.
Yeah, like those really bad movies where they deliberately make the lead character gay or non-binary, so they can say, "Oh, you only hate it because it's a character." It's like, no, I hate it because it's a stupid movie.
Like that Ghostbusters remake.
Yeah.
We didn't like it because we're all female Ghostbusters. We didn't like it because it sucked.
Yeah, I mean, if I recall correctly, the original actors of Ghostbusters saw the movie. That's what they said too. It's like, they said, "Listen, we've got nothing against the ladies. The ladies who started the movie, and they did a good job." Like, I don't know if it was Ernie Hudson or something. One of them said, "The ladies did a good job, but the movie wasn't funny."
Well, and especially like the two main ones, they were really funny with each other and had good chemistry and timing with each other and everything. It just wasn't that good a movie.
Yeah, that's what they said.
They tried their best with a bad script, but they couldn't save it.
Yeah, as the old saying goes, you can't polish a turd.
Well, you can, but it's still a turd.
Yeah.
The thing is just polishing a turd, and so it's not that you can't polish a turd; it's that no matter how much you polish it, it's still a turd. Kind of like lipstick on a pig.
Yep. Or or I think ABGN brought this up. It's like Edgar Vidander brought this up. It's like putting gold on a piece of poo. It's like, yep, it's a pretty piece of poo, but it's still poo.
Yep.
That's the whole thing with the Little Mermaid, too. It's like, from what I understand, people aren't hating it because Ariel's black. They're hating it because it's a bad movie. The effects are hideous. The characters.
Yeah, it's just a cash grab, and the casting as opposed to, there are African mermaid stories.
Yeah.
You could have done one of those, made a brand new movie based on one of those, got some talented writers and a director.
Metatron brought this up when he was criticizing that Cleopatra documentary because they made Cleopatra out to be black when she wasn't. She was Greek and all that, and he pointed out, and the irony is that by forcing you to make Cleopatra black, there was an actual black African queen that actually gave the Romans a run for their money, and you ignore her.
Yeah.
Like
well,
I forgot her name.
The Egyptians are pointing this out as like, look, Egyptians back then and now were not black. They were Egyptian. They were Mediterranean. Yeah. They weren't people in further south in Africa. It's like people think, oh, they're from Africa. They must have been black. Do you have any clue how freaking huge Africa is?
Oh yeah, that's the funny irony too about that. It's like,
and it's mostly the equatorial Africans that have the really dark skin, because if you go down south with like the Tswanas and the San and people like that, they're you look at them, you'd still say they're black, but they're relatively light skinned blacks.
Yeah. I mean, I've actually heard that actual people from Africa, they actually have said they get offended when they hear blacks in America describe themselves African American. It's like, because you're not African and having black skin doesn't mean you're African.
Yep.
I mean, there's African are whiter than sour cream, but how come they're not African American?
Technically, Elon Musk is an African American.
Yeah, he was born in South Africa.
Yep.
Speaking of which, I love how someone was trying to poison the well with him by saying Elon Musk got his money from his father, who owned a diamond mine and apartheid South Africa, ignoring two little details. One, if I recall correctly, Elon was estranged from his father when he was a teenager because his father was abusive. And two, Elon's father was against apartheid. So,
yeah. Also, nice I don't think it was that much of a diamond mine. I mean, not all diamond mines are just, producing and making the owner rich.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there are gold mines around where I live that are still operating. And they're still pulling gold out of the ground. But, I mean, they're not, like, making zillions of dollars. They'll, like, pull out, like, I forget how many cubic meters of earth just to get a gram of gold.
Oh, yeah, contrary to what movies show, gold, doesn't come out, it's all, it's not all shiny and pretty and it's ready to go. Like, if I recall correctly, gold in its natural form, it's incredibly ugly, and you can't even recognize it from regular dirt.
Well, you can if it's washed off, because it doesn't oxidize or anything like that, but it's just when you're looking at gold deposits, the only gold in the Earth's surface, because any primordial gold, when it was molten, would have settled down much further towards the core. The gold you're basically getting on the surface came from asteroid impacts, which, of course, asteroids are made of a bunch of different things, and also the impact would have just scattered it everywhere. So you might have some, nuggets or even bigger pieces, more where the center of the asteroid would have been, but most of it would have been just gold dust that was just blasted in all directions.
Yeah, gold takes time, even if you find... Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing too. That a lot of TV shows and movies, kind of get wrong about that. Like like another good example, that we see a lot, especially in old TV shows. It's like, oh, what's this? We discovered oil on your land. You're automatically rich. And many people have pointed out, well, it doesn't work that way because here's the thing: not all oil is fit for human consumption.
Well, and not all of them are like these major gushers. They're like just these tiny wells that you can get a bit of oil out of, and you can make some money from, but you're not going to be like Magnan or like the J.R.
Yeah, the Beverly Hillbillies, because That's another thing. Just because it's gushing doesn't mean like it's loaded with oil. Because
well, in that case though, it was not only close to the surface, it was plentiful enough that just a gunshot piercing the surface would cause it to bubble up. So that was a pretty darn big oil well. So it made sense that they would become millionaires from that.
Yeah, but actually, I remember seeing one expert saying that's one thing that the 1976 King Kong movie got right, was because in the 1976 version of King Kong, they're not going to Skull Island for to find dangerous creatures. They're going there for oil, and they discover like massive zest pits filled with oil, only for the lead geologists to say, well, yeah, I took a look under it, and yeah, it'll be good oil soon. Wait, soon? Yeah. How long before it'll be good oil? About 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently,
that's what most diamonds are like. Now, the most diamonds that are being mined, they're not like these nice big 4-carat things that wear on your finger and they're thousands of dollars. They're basically powder that has industrial uses, but they're not actually worth all that much.
Yeah. Yeah, like in that King Kong movie, the oil was apparently of a bad quality and it needed some extra sediments in it, and if they were to wait naturally, if they were to wait for it naturally, it would take 10,000 years, and if they tried to do it artificially, it would be so expensive that it wouldn't be worth, that it wouldn't cover the cost of doing it.
But we're better at it now. Like in the 70s when you're talking about it, good luck getting oil from Canadian shale, but they're doing that routinely now.
Oh,
because the technology's better.
Yeah, that's the reason. Yeah, that's the reason why the energy crisis. Every time people say we're running out of oil, it never happens, is because oil is finite, but it's not as finite as people realize it, and we're getting better at using what limited oil we do have.
Yeah, that was just messed up economic policy there.
Yeah,
that wasn't because oil was running out or anything.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, it wasn't caused by. The cause of the energy crisis wasn't we were running out of oil. It was one was the OPEC embargo. Another reason was because some people wrongfully predicted, oh yeah, Texas has reached peak oil. And from what I understand at the time, yeah, Texas did reach peak oil, but then the government's like, holy crap, that means we don't have any oil. Quickly, everyone, we gotta start rationing. We gotta cut prices, and all that. And that led to massive shortages. Only for it to later turn out saying it's like, oh, Texas has more oil than we realized. We're getting oil elsewhere.
Well, they had reached the limit of oil they could get easily, but then they developed ways of getting it oil that was harder to reach, and that's just how it keeps on progressing.
Yeah. Yeah, which meant, oil would be a bit more expensive, and of course, the embargo wasn't helping. But the government's like, no, we don't want oil prices to go up. You got to keep them low. It's like, but then we won't be able to keep it with supply, with demand. But the government's like, nope, do it anyway. And the result is, oil was so cheap that when it started becoming rare, people were rushing to the gas stations to buy as much as they could, and there were literally long lines just to get a gallon of gas.
Well, that was because of the price controls.
Well, yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, the price controls, because the government wouldn't let the oil companies, adjust the gas prices, so to make up for the fact that, we can still get oil, but we're going to have to do it, more, through more expensive procedures. But the government's like, nope, you're going to charge the normal amount.
And then Reagan gets into office and says, okay, those price controls are gone, and guess what? Everything gets better.
Yeah. So he did a couple good things, right?
A couple, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I can understand, why some libertarians like Reagan, because, yeah, he did a lot of, bad stuff too, but, for a politician, he was better than others,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely had worse.
Yeah. And again, and to play the devil's advocate, the sad reality is that even if he was a genuine, libertarian that was doing all this stuff, we all know how politics are, and a lot of people that worked for Reagan even pointed this out. Once Reagan left office, what happened? Those lobbyists, that he pissed off and he got rid of, they came back. Yep. So it happened in the UK. What happened when Margaret Thatcher left office? All those lobbyists she got rid of, they came right back, and the British economy suffered in the 90s as a result. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard from some people that are British, they say that's the reason why Tony Blair, as Prime Minister, was kind of the way he was, because he was trying so hard not to be Margaret Thatcher that he kept saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if a union lobby, saying, oh, we want government to fund this, he was like, okay, fund this, fund that, and...
Alright, well, we gone like 11 minutes over, so got anything else you want to get off your chest?
Nope.
Before we wrap it up for this month, so...
Nah, I'm good.
Well, thanks for having another conversation with me. I enjoy these. And good that Sid could join in. Maybe we'll get some newer voices next time and get the chat going, and maybe we can actually have a live stream that actually goes without a lot of buffering or whatever. But thanks to those of all who stuck it out with it to the end. I appreciate you very much.